Welcome to CNS News. Tonight we bring you stories from around the world and across the Bay. In Oakland, Brian Gibble looks at the city's controversial attempt to stem gang violence. And in San Francisco, Roberto Daza tells the story of a woman released from an Iranian prison as she raises funds to help free those she left behind. But first, Bay Area demonstrators show solidarity with a wave of protests spreading across the Arab world. Ted Trotman has the story.
In a sign that the popular revolt sweeping across Egypt is reaching far beyond its borders, members of the Bay Area community gathered in San Francisco on January 29th to show their support for protesters in Cairo, who are calling for the resignation of Egypt's longtime president, Hosni Mubarak.
Down, Hosni Mubarak! We are sure Mubarak is not going to stay. The whole Egyptian people want him to go now.
People are just fed up. It took a while, but it's finally here, and we're just here to show the solidarity with our Egyptian counterparts.
While the unrest in Egypt shows no signs of letting up, President Mubarak remains in power, for now. This is Ted Trotman, reporting for CNS News.
The Fruitvale gang injunction would restrict the movements of 40 suspected gang members in a troubled neighborhood in East Oakland. But defendants and their families say they have been wrongfully targeted.
Hey, how's it going? My name is Ruben Leo. I'm stepping to my house a little bit.
Ruben is a suspected member of the Mitchell Street Norteños, a violent street gang. He lives in Fruitvale with his girlfriend.
Hi.
They have a 1-year-old daughter and stay with his mother.
Hola.
The city attorney filed the injunction in October of last year, describing Leal and other defendants as hardened criminals.
The Norteños have been one of the most destructive, vicious, and sociopathic criminal organizations in Oakland, not just for years, but literally for generations. They routinely seek out and shoot at rival gang members in public places, not only in what they consider to be their territory, but throughout our city, and with complete disregard for the lives of people who may be caught in the crossfire.
If approved, the injunction would make it a felony for people on the list to associate in public or be out on the street at night in a safety zone stretching from 21st to 46th Avenue in Fruitvale. According to police testimony presented in the injunction, Ruben Leal associates with gang members and faces a pending charge of assault with a deadly weapon.
There's a picture of all my brothers right there. That's my oldest brother.
Leal says he's not a part of the Norteños, and the evidence used against him was dismissed in court. But he's not entitled to a public defender, since the injunction is a civil suit and court and legal fees could cost thousands. Jose Luis Fuentes is working pro bono to fight the injunction, but he only represents one defendant and says lawyers from other firms haven't volunteered.
We're pretty much stuck at this point where we have to have attorneys appointed for these folks, as important civil and human rights are at stake here. And their future lives are going to depend upon this.
Leal's mother says the family doesn't have money to pay for a lawyer, but she vows to battle the injunction any way she can.
¿Es él? ¿Es Rubén?
Sí, es Rubén.
¿Cuántos años tiene?
Aquí yo creo que tendría unos 5 o 6 años. Como mamá yo estoy dispuesta a ir a pelear por a donde sea, si es posible, hasta Washington voy.
She recently joined about 100 people outside City Hall at a protest and said social programs, not injunctions, are the solution to gang violence.
No nomás es responsabilidad de uno o de dos, es responsabilidad de toda la comunidad para que nuestros jóvenes crezcan sanos y fuertes.
Hearings on the gang injunction are scheduled to resume at the Alameda County Superior Court on February 16th. This is Brian Gibble reporting for CNS News.
Released from an Iranian prison last September, Sarah Shord now works to free 2 fellow travelers, her fiancé and her friend.
I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for all of you and countless others all across the globe.
The two UC Berkeley graduates, Shane Bauer and Josh Fatal, are now held in a prison in Tehran, set to stand trial on charges of espionage.
In our worst nightmare, we never believed we would ever be in prison in the first place, let alone be in prison for almost a year and a half.
According to Shord, Iranian officials released her for humanitarian reasons, but not before receiving $500,000 in bail. At the auction, more than 80 artists donated their work to benefit the Free All Three campaign.
Sarah gave me a call one day out of the blue and asked if I would be willing to donate a photo to help, with all the costs. I said, of course, it was a no-brainer.
Especially to honor my fiancé Shane Bauer's work as a photojournalist, and some of his art is showcased tonight, and this is it right behind me.
Now a coalition of supporters, including Desmond Tutu, Noam Chomsky, and Sean Penn, have called on the Iranian government to release the hikers.
It means a tremendous amount to us that so many people around the world will not forget Shane and Josh until they're free.
On January 31st, the Iranian government issued a summons for Sarah Shord to return and stand trial. So far, it's unclear whether she'll agree to do so. This is Roberto Daza for CNS News.
Every year, Californians use 19 billion plastic bags, and less than 5% of them get recycled. We look at one county's attempt to solve the problem. And across the Bay, Richmond bucks the national trend by hiring almost 50 new police officers, with dramatic results. But first, in San Francisco, hundreds of volunteers comb the streets to count the city's homeless. Carl Nasman tells us why.
Down Geary, all the way over to Leavenworth Street.
Homeless Policy Director Daryush Kahan led volunteers through the Tenderloin, searching alleys and doorways to count the city's homeless. The count happens every 2 years and is required to maintain the $18 million of federal funding for San Francisco's homeless programs. The team was one of dozens who gathered near City Hall earlier that night. Volunteers spread out by car and on foot to canvass all of San Francisco in just one night.
The issue of homelessness is something that people don't shy away from in San Francisco. So to know that 400 people chose not only to volunteer but took a Thursday night and a late Thursday night to do this is pretty incredible.
I think it's really a good opportunity to kind of see what's really going on in the city.
In 2009, there were more than 6,500 homeless in the city, down 25% since 2002. City officials say a couple of factors could affect this year's count.
If you base on how many people we've housed, then of course you'd think the number should go down. But in reality, that's not controlling the number of people that come in to San Francisco or the newly homeless that have become homeless because of the economic downturn.
We've seen increased demand for our services by families as a result of the economic downturn. So it may well be we'll see more homeless families in this count. We just don't know.
Getting an accurate count involves some guesswork. Volunteers are not allowed to talk to their subjects or ask if they're homeless.
We're counting this too, because it looks like there's 2 bedrolls there. There's 1 shopping cart. And it looks like about the space where you'd expect about 2 people sleeping, so we're estimating that.
Volunteers are also not supposed to help the people they're counting, but every rule has an exception. A local business owner told the group that a man named Dennis needed help.
Stay in the streets. I don't like shelters.
The plan while we're doing the count is really not to engage folks, but clearly he needed help. He was interested in help. And it was pretty simple for me just to call the Mobile Assistance Patrol and have a van come pick him up and take him to the sobering center. We did count him as well.
The final numbers will not be released until March, but in just 10 blocks of the Tenderloin, volunteers counted 29 homeless. This is Carl Nasman reporting for CNS News.
Paper, please.
Paper or plastic? It's the age-old grocery store question. But thanks to new legislation in Marin County banning the use of plastic bags in some stores and placing a 5-cent fee on paper bags, the answer will soon be obvious to residents in this part of Northern California.
They're a nightmare. They end up clogging our drains. I picked one out of a creek in Mill Valley just 2 months ago. They end up in the aquatic ecosystem and they're killing sea life. So we had to intervene and get rid of those things.
McGlashan championed the ban on plastic bags. It passed the Board of Supervisors in late January and will go into effect next year. He says the county has tried before to get people to voluntarily stop using plastic.
We gave away 12,000 reusable canvas bags at the farmers markets and at stores. But by the summer of '09, it was clear that people weren't changing enough and that some kind of economic signal had to be sent.
But not everyone favors the new legislation. Mark Daniels of plastic bag manufacturer Hylex Poly argues that the plastic bags receive a bad rap and are better for the environment than their alternatives.
The lack of the analysis on the environmental consequences of the proliferation of reusable bags is inappropriate. Ample evidence has emerged recently about both the health and environmental damages of reusable bags.
Our point of view is that's nuts. It's a waste of taxpayer money, and it's better for the environment. And under the California Environmental Quality Act, when something is better for the environment, you don't waste the time and money.
Bill Daniels owns 2 United Markets grocery stores in Marin. He voluntarily dropped plastic bags and says he has since seen that people are using fewer paper bags too.
We've seen some wonderful support with people bringing back their own bags, their own paper bags as well as their cloth bags. I just think that if everybody would join in and realize this is the best thing for us, it's going to work.
Marin is not alone in the push to cut back plastic bags. Last fall, a statewide ban was proposed but failed in the Senate.
I suspect it'll be back in the legislature pretty soon.
I think it's great if they do away with plastic bags and keep encouraging people to recycle and to use the cloth bags whenever possible.
At least 3 other communities nearby have already outlawed plastic bags, evidence that the anti-plastic movement is taking hold. This is Becca Friedman reporting for CNS News.
This guy's flipping his shirt up, showing he has no guns. He wants to show that he's got no weapons on him.
Officer Gunnar Guggens was recently hired by Richmond PD while other California departments were cutting back.
Some of these little kids start yelling out rollers. They're trying to let everybody know that we're coming in.
Last year, Stockton let go of 18 officers, and Oakland laid off 80. But Richmond police have hired 46 officers in the past 2 years. With the surrounding layoffs and a starting salary of $90,000, Police Captain Mark Gagan says the department has received thousands of applications.
If you look at the amount of time and energy and resources it took to hire and retain that employee, to train them, and then to have to let them go, that is a huge loss for those communities, and we have actually made it our gain.
Richmond has the money to hire new officers because a settlement was reached in a tax dispute with Chevron last year. The local oil giant agreed to pay the city $114 million over the next 15 years. Anthony Allen is a local activist who lives in Richmond with his wife and 2 kids. He says it's been months since he's heard gunfire in the neighborhood. But things weren't as quiet when he first moved to the city 6 years ago.
Gunshots every night. My daughters would be afraid, and I would have to tell them that if you hear gunshots, get the ground. You shouldn't have to, teach your kids those type of things.
Okay, hold on, girls, hold on.
But last year, crime fell 10%, and the number of homicides was cut in half.
Most recently, I've just started to honestly let them go across the street to the park. Okay, remember I told you about pushing off, right?
Yes, I get it now.
Allen is hopeful, but he also worries the drop could be a fluke.
Just because shots have stopped, the conditions that cause that type of activity still exist. And so those conditions still need to be addressed.
Captain Gagan said the department is committed to keeping the lid on crime. But to do so, police have to build better relations with the community.
There's a real stigma for the uniform, a real suspicion of the badge. If you're not explaining what you're doing and why, people will attribute maliciousness to it, racism.
The new policies are evident during a routine car stop with Officer Guggens. As trained, he was cautious, but respectful.
Hey, what's going on? The reason why I stopped you is your registration's expired. Are you in the midst of taking care of that, or what's going on? Then do you have anything with your name on it? How am I going to identify you? He may be wanted for something and he's trying to hide his identity, so I want to see maybe if his driver's license is in the car. And then bring your hand behind your back. You're not under arrest or anything, you know that, right? Okay, cool. We'll just go over here. And step up here on the curb and just spread your feet for me for a little bit. You don't have any knives or anything on you?
No, sir.
Okay.
If you tell the driver you're not registered, you're not licensed, this is why I'm doing this search, they understand.
Just based on what's going on here today, I'm going to give you a big break and not write the ticket and tow the car and the whole thing. But you got to promise me that you're not going to drive the car, keep it parked here, and call someone with a license to pick it up. Sound good? You know, some people may not like us and the job that we do, but they do understand why we're here, and they may not want to admit it or say it, but sometimes they will need our help as well.
This is Mark Holtmans, reporting for CNS News.
Coming up, Rosa Ramirez takes us to a San Francisco clinic that's $250,000 in debt and struggling to find its financial footing. But next, 2 stories from Berkeley. Longtime supporters of Iceland face the fact that the historic ice rink may never open again. And after years of frustration with City Hall, cab drivers are getting organized. Bey Abu Ghasim has the story.
Berkeley City Cab drivers say they're fed up with the way they're being treated, and they're doing something about it.
We decided to maybe form an association, maybe will help us, maybe we'll have a voice, maybe we'll do things together.
Drivers formed the Berkeley Cab Association in October to fight hassles the city puts them through, an ethnically diverse group that's finding a way to work together.
He's from India, that's from Yemen.
One of their biggest problems is how the city controls medallions, the permit required to run a taxi business. An owner must apply for a medallion, pay $350, and renew it every year. And owners like Paramjit Singh Sekon can't resell the medallion.
अगर हम लोग ऐसा सेल नहीं कर सकते, खरीद नहीं सकते, बेच नहीं सकते, तो फिर दूसरे बिजनेसों के ऊपर यही कानून लागू क्यों नहीं हुआ? Business is business.
When a person goes out of business, it comes to the city, and the city reissues it, and it's reissued to people who are on a list, and the people who, of course, have those medallions would prefer to have it be their own, not the city's. So that's an issue that we're looking at.
Let me give you my card. So I'm working on trying to get the city to fix its policies.
Chris Worthington has claimed cabs as his cause, calling for a taxi summit that would bring the Cab Association and city officials together. He also wants to create more taxi stands in logical locations.
I have repeatedly heard from people, especially in the campus area, that we need to have a taxi stand right by the campus.
But more stands alone won't solve the drivers' discontent.
अगर इन लोगों ने कोई स्टेप नहीं उठाया, तो हमको मजबूर होके सबसे पहले सिटी ऑफ बर्कले में टैक्सी बिजनेस की टोटल अपना सट्रैक करने पड़ेगी.
But that is something Mayor Bates would like to prevent.
Cut back on bus service, particularly to the hills, the Berkeley Hills. We need to have this cab.
Talks between the city and the Cab Association continue, but the drivers say a strike is still on the table. This is Faye Abul Ghasim reporting for CNS News.
Scenes like this one at Oakland Ice Center were once common in Berkeley, up until 2007, when that city's rink closed.
It's a very special place. The community that was based there was like nothing you can find around at many places. It was the kind of place where parents would drop their kids off and feel safe about it and let them spend the afternoon having some fun. It had a real community flavor to it.
Tom Killalay has been trying to save Berkeley's Iceland for 5 years, but the owners decided it was too expensive to fix the refrigeration system, which dates back to 1940. Iceland closed, and since then, sports like hockey and skating have fallen on hard times.
What's really lacking in Berkeley is for the kids who don't have the opportunity or the skills or the drive for some place like this and just want to go and have some fun, a place to hang out. Berkeley really doesn't have any place like that anymore.
And it's not likely to have one anytime soon. The conversation has moved on to what's next for the building, and the most likely outcome? Sports Basement, a sporting goods store. Sports Basement declined to comment, but they're known for preserving other landmark buildings they've moved into. Meanwhile, Berkeley Mayor Tom Bates just wants to see some progress.
Unfortunately, the people who wanted to make it into an ice rink have had a lot of opportunity to make it happen. But it's one of those things that, unfortunately, time may have passed it by.
Iceland's past is pretty impressive. The first rink west of the Mississippi, Peggy Fleming won her 1966 U.S. championship here. Gold medalist Brian Boitano skated here too. And the Zamboni family has owned it for more than 50 years. To Tom Killalay, that all means a lot.
I like sports basement. I like what they do for the community. The problem is they can do what they do in any building. They don't need Berkeley Iceland to do that.
But for now, Sports Basement has a plan for Iceland's future, and it appears to be advancing smoothly. This is Kevin Fixler reporting for CNS News.
These entertainers are performing at a fundraiser to keep a San Francisco clinic open. The downtown medical center treats low-income patients, many of them gay, lesbian, or transgender. The overall debt for Lion Martin Health Services is close to $500,000. They have to raise half of that amount this month just to stay open.
If we need to close a clinic, we do it in a responsible way where patients have a smooth and safe transition onto their next provider.
That may be all the clinic can do for its 2,500 patients, many of whom come for hormone therapy. Without the money, San Francisco loses an unusual medical facility.
There is not another clinic like us in the state. There is not another clinic like us in the country.
This is Rosa Ramirez reporting for CNS News.
In Richmond, Christina Lopez introduces us to a talented young woman on her way to the Ivy League. And on the Bay, Emily Bender joins scientists as they try to solve the mystery of the harbor porpoise.
After 65 years, harbor porpoises are returning to San Francisco Bay. Marine scientists believe a combination of pollution, boat traffic, and a drop in food supply drove these mammals away.
All right, so 10:40, they just seem to stay outside in the ocean and not come in.
Researchers like Bill Keener from Golden Gate Cetacean Research are recording sightings and shooting photos from bridges around the bay.
You got a good enough camera, you can actually take pictures down on them and see scars or pigmentation patterns that are unique. And so we can identify them from that.
We've identified over 125. Most of them have been here just seen once, but a few of them we've seen several times, which suggests they might be coming sort of resident or locals.
But studying porpoises isn't easy. They're shy and quick moving, so little research has been done on their habits.
Cetacean work, porpoise work, is probably one of the hardest things to study in terms of getting basic biological life history, because you just can't watch them all the time like you can a terrestrial mammal.
Around the bay, you're most likely to see harbor seals. Unless you're an expert, it's hard to tell the difference between them, dolphins, sharks, or porpoises when they're in the water.
Well, when they see a triangular dorsal fin come out of the water, it's going to be like a 1 to 2 second roll at the surface. A dolphin will have a much bigger swept back curved dorsal fin.
If you do happen to see one, Keener and Stern would like you to report it at their website, ggcetacean.org.
So if people have an unusual sighting of a dolphin or porpoise, that is a very good thing. We sort of like to think of it as citizen science. Everybody can take part in this kind of study.
This is Emily Bender reporting for CNS News.
Richmond High is the largest school in the district and one of the toughest. It has 1,600 students and a low graduation rate.
With a dropout rate of nearly 50%, one student was able to rise above it all. Her name, Guadalupe Morales. At 17 years old and with a 4.2 GPA, she can't wait to start Brown University in the fall.
Immediately in my head, I just have this picture of me like walking through the campus. I'm like, wow, that's really going to happen.
Mary Caudry has taught at Richmond High School for the last 13 years. In all that time, she's never met a student quite like Guadalupe Morales.
She's very intelligent, but really it's her work ethic.
It's her commitment and her belief in herself that she can do it. She's a teacher's dream.
Always work hard, always try your hardest. Push yourself, motivate yourself, regardless of what anyone else says.
Was your week this week good?
Jean-Pierre de Oliveira is Guadalupe's counselor. He says Guadalupe faces the same difficulties of most teens at Richmond High.
She has faced many challenges, like many of my students, but I think what sets her apart from a lot of the other students is the involvement of her parents in her life.
Guadalupe lives with her mother in this San Pablo trailer camp and is very close with her father, Luis Arturo Morales. Guadalupe's parents immigrated from Mexico 22 years ago. He always took an interest in her academics by touring several of the surrounding schools.
Stanford, Santa Clara, todo este tipo de cosas. Pues yo todo el tiempo le decía, claro, buenas tardes, ves que llegaba muy cansado, pero de todos modos que fuéramos a al open school a platicar con los maestros, qué tal iba en la escuela.
Saying goodbye to their only daughter will be hard for her parents, especially for her mother.
Entonces, para mí es difícil. ¿Por qué es difícil? Porque sé que no va a estar cerca. Pero yo quiero que ella haga lo que ella quiere ser.
Guadalupe received a full scholarship from Brown, a university that only admits about 5% of its applicants.
I'm going to school where everyone's, at my level or above, so it's definitely going to be more academically, stressful. The challenge of being, in a different environment, that's just going to be the hardest, and be able to, really overcome that.
It's a stress she's ready to handle.
Regardless of, your economic situation, regardless of what your family looks like, always push yourself to try your hardest and you'll accomplish your dreams.
This is Cristina Lopez reporting for CNS News.
Thanks for watching. Join us next time on CNS News.